You're not warriors. You're pigs. You're all pigs.
Avatu, Luatha, Ben Alphafu.
Hey there, just a quick video tonight. I was watching Rob, so Rob, I guess this is to you or anyone who likes your channel over at Comics Explained is your entertainment channel with all your content about comic books, but I'm talking about your personal channel where you give kind of big brother advice to people. You were talking about MGTOW. So I think generally speaking, you brought a very level-headed approach to it, but there's a very core element, and in fairness, you did say that you recognize that you don't really know MGTOW very well.
I've never talked to anybody in this group. I'm not part of it myself. In reality, I like sex and I like women. So I really don't have a reason to join that community. But I mean, just going on personal experience in my interactions with various people, I would say that some of these guys arrived at this conclusion because they were every woman's best friend. You know, they were the male equivalent of always a bridesmaid, never a bride. You know, some men are in this position, or they join this community because they were always viewed as like a meal ticket, right? They were really, really successful financially, and every woman they ever dated always just saw them as like a means to an end. Like, hey, you're my ticket to Easy Street. You know, they maybe had like extremely abusive mothers, maybe sometimes even sexually abusive. They were coming from positions whereby they've had nothing but negative experiences with women. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I think that there is a subsect of this community that turns to men going their own way because they have a fundamental misunderstanding of how dating works.
Fair enough. So the key element you're missing that I think that you're dismissing, and you're setting people up actually for some pretty devastating results under certain circumstances, is that there's a political element. That's family courts. So clearly you've not been divorced, you've not been raped for support payments, you've never lost your children, you've never had to go through a court system that in the West doesn't just treat men with less human dignity, it treats us without human rights. And this is where the MGTOW and the men's rights movement really foment from. You mentioned that they call it the red pill. From my own experience going through family court, I called it my rude awakening. And Rob, if you ever end up in court and you bring your very reasonable attitude into the court, as you've expressed it on your video, and your ex, for whatever reason, is out for blood, you will be crucified. You need to become informed if that's ever a possibility on the table in your life, or people you care about. You need to become informed about the realities of family court. So, sorry, I'm at work. Again, I'm a truck driver. So some of the realities you might want to know is that a woman that stays at home they'll get pity points. It's not as if you're a partnership and they wanted to stay at home and have children. You're treated like you were a slave master that forced them to stay at home, and you must now be punished for it. So, you know, in some cases, like 50% of your income for life can be taken depending on your circumstances. Whatever it is, unless you're on welfare, it will be extreme. For my own case, what I call the rude awakening, is I had one judge that didn't care that my job situation had changed, and my income had dropped, I was already being hit up for a lot of money. He raised it in my circumstances so high I couldn't make the payments. And for the first time in my life, I was threatened with jail, with prison. They threatened my credit, they threatened my bank account, they threatened my ability to do my job, to cross the border with a passport. And I wasn't a criminal, I just wasn't making enough money. I wanted to see my kid. That was my real crime. And the people who've pushed for this type of legislation change, they're the extremists. You're right, some of these people, they're damaged. Some of these people are maladjusted, and you call them a subset. I would say that that is not the real important thing to take away from what MGTOW is. I think you've been off the mark on this video. It is that the courts need to change to recognize that men and women now need to take responsibility both for their own lives, and that they need to receive equal consideration regardless of sex when they enter into that room, when it comes to divorce, separation, when it comes to custody, for sure. If you want to know how to destroy a man, take away his children.
When a man is battered by his spouse, there is no shelter which would take him.
The government which should protect him will imprison him, even if he's falsely accused by his wife.
He will lose his job, and will be subjected to social shame. Family courts incentivizes his abuser by extorting money from him.
Divorce alienates him from his children, takes away his house and his money. A man who has lost his children, house, and social image, receives new help from the same government, which he pays tax to.
All this helplessness leads to drug and alcohol abuse, which also makes him depressed and suicidal.
And in Canada right now, where I am, the last I checked a couple years ago was over 85% of the time women get full custody of the children. 85% of the time. When it comes to payments for support, and again, we're still talking about grown women who need to be paid for like their children, over 90% of the time it is men making those payments. This is not equality. You do not get fair consideration, and they'll keep saying, if you have children involved, best interests of the child. But at the end, the legislation that's been behind all these movements for the last several decades has been ideologically feminist.
What is dating really? In reality, dating's like buying a car, right? You would be an idiot. Let's say that by whatever manner and whatever means, you have enough money to go purchase a new car like outright. You would be an idiot if you walked onto that car lot and said, I'm looking for a Camry XSE. And they say, well, we have one over here. And you say, I'll take it. And you buy it and you pay tax, title, and license and you drive off the lot and you're done. That would be a very foolish thing to do. What you do is you go onto that car lot and you say, I'm looking for a Camry XSE. And they say, well, we have one over here. And you test drive it. You decide if you like the steering. You decide if you like the handling. You decide that maybe a family sedan that has 300 horsepower is not actually a sports car and you want a real sports car instead. Whatever the case is, you go through and you get a feel for the vehicle. And if you like it, then you buy it. The principles of dating are the same up to the point of ownership. You don't actually have ownership over the person that you're dating, but the principles remain the same.
Can I sue her for making a false allegation against me and ruining my life and my good name? Well, the answer to that question is probably not. And if you try, good luck to you. If you are the victim of a false allegation of sexual assault, your primary and sole concern should be keeping yourself out of prison, not on suing her. You can worry about that after you're acquitted. Unfortunately, even if you are falsely accused of sexual assault, you will most likely be looked at by your command and certainly by the prosecutors as a rapist who will say anything possible to keep from getting convicted. If an allegation has been made against you which is false, you need to do whatever you can to prove your innocence.
You need to do whatever you can to prove your innocence.
And if you're a moderate, you will not be prepared for the wave that's going to hit you. Your life will never be the same again. The best thing you can do is go against your own decent instincts and listen to someone who knows how to fight in the court system. So that's my heads up to you. I'm not MGTOW, and some people consider me men's rights. I've never formally entered any kind of movement like that, but I do speak about my own concerns about, I got a moth here, my own concerns about the family court system. It is brutal. I have watched my daughter suffer a lot for years through this system, and it's not because it just happens to be unfortunate. It's because it's biased, it's damaged, and I have relatives, young relatives, who have decided not to date and not see women, and they're not formally part of MGTOW, but they're part of the phenomenon of men who don't want to be treated like wage slaves, who don't want to have their rights taken away, who don't want to be threatened with prison. They want to have a future for themselves. And I think that with women being so weaponized now, you don't know which woman's going to turn on you if you have a separation. You can't see the future. No one can read minds. So I think you should consider that. You have a great channel, and I don't mean this to be a personal attack, obviously, but I thought this is something I strongly suggest. Rob, you seem like an intelligent man. Look into the data that's presented by the critics of the family court system, and then I think you'll begin to understand much more when you start listening to what these men go through, why it is that they and their relatives are now turning away from relationships. It's not because they want to. It's not because they don't understand dating. What it is, I don't think you understand what happens as a consequence when you end up in family court because you decided to date, and you just happened to pick the wrong person that you felt feelings for in your heart. Peace.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
So you were married at the time, and you were getting divorced while we were doing the show. Yeah. And it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life, and not just the Phil Hartman divorce thing, scared me, but Dave's thing scared me.
Well, at the time when I made her get into therapy, she's I forced her to get into couples therapy because I was miserable, and so as soon as I said, let's go to therapy, she said, well, I got to go first. And, all right, you can go see the therapist.
Set the traps.
Yeah. So she goes in and explains to the therapist that I'm an abusive husband. Yeah. But then I go into therapy, and the therapist goes, who is prepared for this abusive husband to walk in, and she goes, and she explained to me later. She said it was very weird because you walked in and you didn't match the description of you at all. And she said when you walked in, and I saw you two together, I immediately realized that if anyone in this couple was abused, it was me. But then, she was diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder.
It was just...
That's one of the key signals of a borderline, is that they say it's the inability to recognize the good and bad in the same person.
Wow.
So you can shift from being the most evil person to the greatest person.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So with my first wife, before we were a couple, when it was just, illicit, when it was like these secret feelings, and when we were friends, I was the greatest guy on earth, and she made me feel like I was the greatest guy on earth.
So you thought, this is the perfect woman for me.
But as soon as we became a couple, first thing, like sex, gone immediately.
Whoa.
Like, we didn't have sex for 11 years.
Wow.
We were together 11 years, and we'd have sex maybe once a year.
Oh, my God.
How did you have 2 kids?
Once a year.
Wow.
Really?
I have very motile sperm.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we had kids because she decided she wanted to get pregnant. And even at that point, I thought, oh, well, at least we'll get laid.
In reality, I like sex. And I like women.
Well, this is why I brought this up. So I ran into you on Twitter. I saw you on Twitter. And one of the first things I saw you on Twitter was you talking about how you had just gotten, the court had just told you have to pay 3 times your monthly salary in alimony.
Yeah, and it's 2 times what I would say is an average, because a lot of months I don't have a salary. They ordered. I had to pay $17,700 a month, or go to jail for 10 days any month that I'm late, without warning. That was the judge's ruling.
Jail for 10 days.
You go through and you get a feel for the vehicle, and if you like it, then you buy it. The principles of dating are the same.
So do you have to be exported to Canada? Is that what?
Well,
happened?
That's the thing. I'm here, so.
So do you just say, fuck you, I live here now?
I just stay here, but I can't risk going back to Canada.
Because you'll go to jail.
Yeah.
Whoa. So
unless I've come up with $17,700, which in a month where I haven't earned anything is a little hard to do.
Fuck that.
You go through and you get a feel for the vehicle, and if you like it, then you buy it. The principles of dating are the same.
But again, they were trying through this organization called the FRO, the Family Responsibility Office in Ontario. that, and this legal office is really responsible for hounding a lot of men to their death. Like, there's a real problem with like people committing suicide after being prosecuted by these people, and they were trying to get me. Like in November, I was sitting in a court in like November 20th, I guess, sitting in court and thinking at the end of that day I might go to jail for 6 months. They were pushing for me to go to jail for 6 months. This is what the FRO was asking: 6-month jail sentence if I didn't come up with $500,000 that day, and an additional 30 days for every month I didn't come up with the money.
Oh my God.
So, and I was sitting there going, well, the judge, if he goes for it,
you're in jail for life.
They'll cuff me there that day, take me to jail.
Oh my God.
And I'll go to jail for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, they'll say, you know, well, do you have the $500,000? And plus the ongoing money that would accrue over the 6 months. And I'd say, no, I've been in jail for 6 months. How was I supposed to earn any money? All right, that's another 30 days. At the end of that 30 days, you got the money? No, I've been in jail.
So it's essentially a life sentence unless someone gives you $500,000.
Yeah.
But if I'm being honest with you guys, I think that there is a subsect of this community that turns to men going their own way because they have a fundamental misunderstanding of how dating works.
Yeah, I mean, in order to pay $17,700, I have to earn about $40,000 in a month just to pay that. Just, with 20% commission, 35% tax bracket. So I got to earn $40,000 just to have $0.
Fuck.
And it's just
and this all goes to someone you hate.
Yeah, yeah. And who didn't fuck me for 11 years.
In reality, I like sex. And I like women. So I really don't have a reason to join that community.
It's hell.
That's crazy ass laws. Now, when you tell them that you don't make that much money anymore, what do they say?
Oh, the judge who made this ruling, because they were asking for the 6 months, right? And the judge kept saying to the FRO attorney, give me another option. It's all here in these documents. All the money that's come in and where it's all gone. I can see it all in these documents. So I am convinced that there isn't $500,000 for Mr. Foley to come up with today. So if you insist on that ruling, then I would send him to jail and your client will never see another dime because Mr. Foley's career will be over. And that's it. And he kept saying, give me an option that will get your client some money. And the FRO refused. They said, well, we don't have the authority from our client, my ex-wife, to make any other offer. So for about 2 hours, the judge kept asking them to come up with another.
So all this time, while you're sitting there, you're going, I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
And I might be going to jail essentially forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens?
And going to jail for the crime of not earning $1 million.
Oh my God! So what happens if that actually does happen? I mean, have guys gone in jail with a large sum like that and never come out?
I don't know, but people have definitely gone to jail, and definitely there's a lot of people who have been looking at jail time who have just killed themselves.
In reality, I like sex, and I like women, so I really don't have a reason to join that community.
Let's put it this way. So much of what I went through the last 8 years, it was unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. And it costs a fortune. And more the psychic toll. I mean, I aged like 20 years in the last 8 years. It killed me. I was really tired.
I know. But you say something about 50-50 custody. I'm not sure if I agree with that particularly. I don't know.
Why? What about it?
Well, because why should it be 50-50?
Well, you're on The View. You have a constituency you have to suck up to, a feminist constituency.
No, it has nothing to do with that.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh, okay.
And
the courts know that, and the courts treat in family law and in divorce custody law, this is a civil proceeding that metes out criminal punishment. Mm-hmm. You were denied your rights as a parent based on the testimony of very, very biased people, not just the other, your ex-spouse, but some of her collateral witnesses as well. And custody evaluations are very, very biased. But the thing is, the courts know this.
Yeah.
The courts, and they do nothing to stop it because it's a racket whereby people are lining their pockets with a lot of money.